To kind of fill in a couple of gaps from the budget activity, one of the things that I wanted to hit on very, very quickly with y'all is the idea of the difference between the budget deficit and between the national debt. You'll hear about terms like the national budget deficit and the national debt, and sometimes these are used interchangeably. But if they are used interchangeably, it's actually 100% incomplete. It's actually inaccurate. When you talk about the national debt, basically what you're doing is you're talking about the amount of money that the federal government owes over the course of the entire history of the country. So if you want to take it all the way back to George Washington and you want to run it all the way up to 2010 under President Obama, this would be what's known as the national debt. The national debt. And if you remember, I gave you that site, the National Debt Clock in MyMC, and you'll note on there that basically, depending upon the numbers you're looking at, this is the number that's about that $12 or $13 trillion figure, and it's about $40,000 per American citizen, again, depending upon the day and time you look at it. Now, having said this, what exactly then would be the budget deficit? Well, if the national debt is going to be the amount that the federal government owes over the course of the entire history of the country, the budget deficit is going to be the yearly deficit, or the yearly amount that the federal government owes. Now, I'm going to show you just a real quick graph here to give you a sense of this. When you take a look, this is actually from the last 5 years dealing with the yearly budget deficit. And if you'll note on here in 2005, it looks like it was right about $300 billion. If you look at 2006, maybe it was roughly about $250 billion. If you look at 2007, it actually looks like it was below $100 billion. These numbers really aren't that crazy. In 2008, it jumped all the way back up over $400 billion, but the scary number is 2009. This is going to be basically the end or the after effect of the Bush presidency, and obviously the first year for President Obama. It's jumped all the way up to $1.2 trillion. Now I want you to think about this. The national debt is roughly between 12 and 13 trillion. For 1 year in 2009, it's projected at $1.2 trillion, which means in 2009, 10% of the amount that the federal government owes in over 200 years of American history, 10% of it came in 2009. For test purposes, please make sure you know the national debt is the total that the federal government owes from the entire history of the country, and then the budget deficit is going to be the yearly amount that's owed. Two very significant numbers, two very significant terms with two very different meanings.